Infant's lost shoe became bear cub's treasure. Their meeting months later had reporters sobbing. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help us to remain in touch with amazing people like you. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the wooden porch of the Mason family cabin. Nestled at the edge of Pinewood Forest, the small vacation home offered both comfort and adventure for the young family. 4-year-old Olivia Mason sat on a colorful blanket spread across the porch, her small fingers working diligently to string wooden beads onto a leather cord. Around her neck hung a heart-shaped silver locket, a gift from her grandmother on her last birthday. "Look, Mommy, I made a necklace just like mine." Olivia held up her creation, beaming with pride as the beads caught the sunlight. Eleanor Mason smiled, brushing a strand of dark hair from her daughter's forehead. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. Just be careful with your locket. Remember what Grandma said about keeping it safe." Olivia nodded solemnly, her small hand instinctively reaching up to touch the precious item. Inside the locket was a tiny photograph of her grandmother, the only picture she had since the elderly woman had passed away just 2 months after giving her the gift. The locket had rarely left Olivia's neck since then. As the evening approached, dark clouds began rolling in from the west. Thomas Mason stepped onto the porch, his weathered hands wiping dirt from his jeans after chopping wood for the fireplace. "Storm's coming in. We should head inside soon," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "Olivia, help me gather your toys, please." The little girl nodded, scrambling to collect her beads and crafting supplies. In her haste, she didn't notice the delicate clasp of her locket catch on a splinter of wood on the porch railing. As she moved away, the chain snapped, and the silver heart tumbled silently into the tall grass below the porch. Inside the cabin, the family settled in for the night as the first raindrops began to fall. Thunder rolled in the distance as Olivia helped her mother prepare hot chocolate. It wasn't until bedtime, when Eleanor was helping her daughter change into her pajamas, that she noticed the locket was missing. "Olivia, where's your locket?" Eleanor asked, her heart sinking as she saw her daughter's bare neck. The little girl's eyes widened in alarm. Her hands flew to her throat, patting desperately. "I don't know. I had it when we were outside." Tears welled in her eyes. "We have to find it, Mommy. Grandma's picture is inside." Thomas joined the search, but the storm had intensified, making it impossible to look outside. Rain lashed against the windows and lightning illuminated the forest in brief, eerie flashes. "We'll look first thing in the morning," Thomas promised, holding his sobbing daughter close. "The locket is silver. It won't rust overnight. We'll find it when the storm passes." But what the Mason family didn't know was that they weren't the only ones taking shelter from the rain that night. In the shadows of the forest, just beyond the clearing where their cabin stood, a young gray wolf pup had been separated from its pack during the sudden storm. Scared and alone, the 4-month-old pup sought refuge under the Masons' elevated porch, huddling against the wooden support beams as rain and wind howled around it. As the wolf pup curled up in the darkness, something shiny caught its eye. A glint of silver half buried in the mud where Olivia's locket had fallen. Curious, the pup inched forward and sniffed at the strange object. With gentle teeth, it picked up the heart-shaped pendant, the chain dangling from its mouth. The locket had a faint scent of the little girl and her vanilla-scented shampoo, an oddly comforting smell to the frightened animal. The wolf pup carried the locket back to its shelter under the porch, placing it between its paws as it drifted into an uneasy sleep. The storm raging overhead, and the silver heart clutched close like a talisman against the frightening night. Inside the cabin, Olivia finally fell asleep, her pillow damp with tears, completely unaware that her precious memento was just a few feet below her, in the safekeeping of a wild creature equally lost and alone in the storm. Neither the child nor the wolf pup could have imagined how this small silver locket would connect their lives in the days to come. A connection that would eventually leave a group of hardened wildlife researchers in tears and change the way people viewed the relationship between humans and the wild creatures of Pinewood Forest forever. Morning arrived with gentle beams of sunlight filtering through the pine trees. The storm had passed, leaving behind puddles that mirrored the clear blue sky. Olivia was the first to wake, the memory of her lost locket immediately flooding back. She scrambled out of bed, still in her pajamas, and rushed to her parents' room. "Mommy, Daddy, we need to find my locket now," she urged, pulling at her father's arm. "Please, the rain stopped." Thomas rubbed sleep from his eyes and checked his watch. "It's barely 6 in the morning, sweetie." "But Grandma's picture," Olivia whispered, her lower lip trembling. "What if someone takes it?" Eleanor sat up, her maternal instincts responding to her daughter's distress. "Who would take it out here, honey?" "We're the only ones for miles." But they didn't know how wrong they were. While the family prepared for their search, the wolf pup beneath the porch had awakened at first light. The storm had disoriented the young wolf, leaving it unsure which direction would lead back to its pack. The locket had remained clasped between its paws throughout the night, the metal warming against its fur. Now, as hunger gnawed at its belly, the pup knew it needed to move. With careful teeth, the wolf picked up the locket by its broken chain and crawled out from under the porch. Its keen ears detected movement inside the cabin above, the sound of human voices and footsteps. Instinct told the pup to retreat into the safety of the forest, taking its shiny treasure along. As the wolf disappeared among the trees, Dr. Maya Blackwood was setting up her research equipment a half-mile away. The wildlife biologist had been tracking the local wolf pack for nearly 3 years, documenting their behavior patterns and social dynamics. At 35, Maya had dedicated her life to proving that wolves were not the merciless predators of folklore, but complex social creatures worthy of protection and understanding. "Signals coming in strong today," she told her research assistant Liam Parker as they adjusted the radio collar tracking equipment. The alpha female moved the pack northward after the storm, probably seeking higher ground. Liam, a graduate student with a passion for wildlife conservation, nodded as he checked the GPS coordinates. "That's unusual. They normally stay in the valley this time of year." Maya frowned, studying the digital map on her tablet. Something must have spooked them, or ... Her voice trailed off as she noticed an anomaly in the data. "Wait, look at this. One signal is separated from the pack." Liam leaned over her shoulder. "Radio collar number 7, that's the youngest pup." Maya finished his sentence, concern etching lines around her eyes. "Separated during the storm, most likely. We need to locate it." Back at the cabin, the Mason family had begun their search. Thomas had instructed Olivia to stay on the porch while he and Eleanor carefully combed through the wet grass surrounding the cabin. "I was sitting right here when I was making my necklace," Olivia explained, pointing to the spot where she had been crafting the day before. "And I had the locket then. I remember touching it." Thomas knelt down, his fingers sorting through the grass near the porch steps. "The rain might have washed it deeper into the ground," he said, trying to keep his daughter's hopes alive while being realistic. Eleanor circled the perimeter of the cabin, her eyes scanning for any glint of silver. After an hour of searching, the family reconvened on the porch, disappointment heavy in the air. "I don't understand," Olivia said, tears welling in her eyes again. It has to be here somewhere. Eleanor wrapped an arm around her daughter's shoulders. Maybe we should take a break and have breakfast. We can look again afterward with fresh eyes. As they turned to go inside, a movement at the forest edge caught Thomas's attention. He squinted, then grabbed Eleanor's arm. "Look," he whispered, pointing. "A wolf." There, partially hidden by the underbrush, stood a full-grown gray wolf, the alpha female of the pack. Her amber eyes locked onto the cabin, watching, waiting. "Get inside," Thomas said quietly, ushering his family toward the door. "Now." Once safely inside, they peered through the window. The wolf remained at the tree line, seemingly hesitant to venture into the open clearing. "She's beautiful," Olivia breathed, pressing her face against the glass. "And dangerous," Thomas added, though there was no fear in his voice, only respect. "I've never seen one this close to the cabin before." What they didn't realize was that the alpha female was searching for her missing pup, the same one that had found shelter under their porch and now carried Olivia's locket deeper into the forest. Miles away in the dense woods, the wolf pup continued its solitary journey, the silver locket clutched gently between its teeth. The young wolf was following a stream, instinctively knowing that water sources often led to clearings where the pack might hunt. The locket swung with each step, occasionally catching sunlight and sending brilliant reflections dancing across the forest floor. The pup hadn't gone far when it encountered a new scent. Unfamiliar, yet not threatening. Rounding a bend in the stream, it came face to face with a young fox. The red-furred creature tilted its head curiously at the wolf pup, particularly interested in the shiny object dangling from its mouth. For a moment, the two wild animals regarded each other with mutual curiosity. Then, in a flash of movement, the fox darted forward, snatching the locket from the surprised wolf pup's jaws. Before the pup could react, the fox bounded away through the underbrush, the silver heart now in its possession. The wolf pup let out a plaintive howl and gave chase, but the fox was quicker, more agile, and intimately familiar with every hiding spot in this part of the forest. Within minutes, the pup had lost both the fox and the locket. Meanwhile, Dr. Maya Blackwood and Liam had picked up the signal from the wolf pup's radio collar and were closing in on its location. As they hiked through the dense undergrowth, the sound of a young wolf's howl reached their ears. "That's got to be our pup," Maya said, quickening her pace. "It sounds distressed." They followed the sound until they reached the stream, where they found the wolf pup pacing anxiously along the bank, sniffing at the ground and occasionally letting out another mournful cry. "It's looking for something," Liam observed as they kept a safe distance, observing through binoculars. "Or someone," Maya corrected. "It's separated from the pack. That's enough to cause distress." But there was something odd about the pup's behavior. It wasn't moving in a direction that would take it back toward the pack's last known location. Instead, it seemed fixated on following a specific scent trail that led away from its family. "Let's track it," Maya decided, making notes in her field journal. This could be important data on how separated wolves behave in unfamiliar territory. Back at the cabin, the Masons had finished breakfast, and Thomas was preparing to drive into the nearby town for supplies. "I'll ask around about a jeweler," he promised Olivia. "Maybe someone can make you a new locket." The little girl shook her head firmly. "It won't have Grandma's picture in it." "We have other pictures of Grandma," Eleanor reminded her gently. "We can make a new locket just as special." "It won't be the same," Olivia insisted, her voice small but determined. As Thomas drove away, Eleanor suggested a walk to cheer up her daughter. "Let's explore the trail by the stream, the one with all those pretty wildflowers you like." Olivia agreed reluctantly. and soon they were making their way along a narrow path that wound through the forest toward the bubbling stream that ran behind their cabin. The same stream where, unknown to them, a wolf pup was searching for a stolen treasure, and 2 wildlife researchers were following its trail. The fox that had taken the locket had its own destination in mind. It trotted through the forest with confident steps, occasionally stopping to ensure the shiny prize was still secure in its jaws. Eventually, it arrived at a hollow log nestled against the roots of a massive pine tree. This was the fox's den, where it had collected an assortment of interesting items: a blue jay feather, a smooth river stone, the cap from a hiker's water bottle, and now a silver heart-shaped locket. The fox dropped the locket into its collection and curled up for a midday nap, unaware of the significance of its latest acquisition or the chain of events that had been set in motion by this simple act of curiosity and thievery. As the fox slept, the locket lay among the other treasures, its silver surface catching the occasional beam of sunlight that penetrated the den. Inside, protected by the metal heart, the photograph of Olivia's grandmother remained intact, the elderly woman's gentle smile frozen in time behind the glass. In another part of the forest, a grizzled old park ranger named Frank Dawson was beginning his daily patrol. At 63, Frank had been watching over Pinewood Forest for nearly 4 decades. He knew every trail, every stream, and most of the wildlife by sight. What he didn't know was that today's patrol would lead him to an unexpected discovery. Frank's route took him past several known fox dens. He'd been monitoring the local red fox population as part of a conservation effort. Armed with a small camera, he would sometimes peek into accessible dens to count kits and assess the health of the population without disturbing them. "Let's see how that vixen near Pine Creek is doing," he muttered to himself, turning his forest green truck down a narrow service road. "Should have a new litter by now." When he reached the massive pine tree, Frank grabbed his camera and approached quietly. The hollow log that served as the fox's den was visible from several yards away. He noticed the fox was out, probably hunting for its next meal, leaving the den temporarily unattended. Frank knelt and pointed his camera into the den, using its flash to illuminate the dark interior. As he reviewed the digital images, something caught his eye. Something that didn't belong among the natural items a fox would typically collect. "Well, what do we have here?" he whispered, zooming in on the photograph. "That's a locket, a child's locket by the looks of it." With 40 years of experience, Frank knew the importance of leaving wildlife undisturbed. But he also knew that human items in animal dens could sometimes pose dangers, particularly small metal objects that could be swallowed. Carefully, he reached into the den and extracted the silver heart, examining it in his weathered palm. "Someone's missing this for sure," he said, noting the broken chain and the fact that the locket was open, revealing the photograph inside. The elderly woman's face looked up at him, her kind eyes seemingly meeting his own. "Better take it back to the station. Might be able to find who it belongs to." Frank pocketed the locket and continued his patrol, unaware that by removing one item from the fox's collection, he had altered the course of events yet again. Back at the stream, Eleanor and Olivia were kneeling by the water's edge, watching tiny minnows dart between the stones. Despite her mother's attempts to distract her, Olivia's thoughts kept returning to her lost locket. "Do you think animals might have taken it?" she asked suddenly, trailing her fingers through the cool water. Eleanor looked surprised. "Animals? Why would you think that?" "Mrs. Collins at school said magpies take shiny things for their nests," Olivia explained seriously. "What if a bird took my locket?" Before Eleanor could respond, a rustling in the underbrush across the stream caught their attention. A small gray form emerged cautiously from between the ferns. The wolf pup, still searching for the fox that had stolen its treasure. "Mom," Olivia whispered, freezing in place. "Look." Eleanor instinctively put a protective arm around her daughter, but didn't move otherwise. "Stay very still, honey." The wolf pup hadn't noticed them yet. It was sniffing along the ground, following the fox's scent trail that led to the stream. When it reached the water's edge, it looked up and locked eyes with Olivia. For a long moment, child and wolf regarded each other across the narrow stream. There was no fear in the pup's gaze, only curiosity and something that almost seemed like recognition. It tilted its head, studying the human child with intelligent eyes. "It looks sad," Olivia whispered, not breaking eye contact with the wild animal. Eleanor was about to pull her daughter away when the pup did something unexpected. It let out a soft whine and took a step into the shallow stream, as if it wanted to approach them. "Olivia, we need to go," Eleanor said firmly, slowly standing and pulling her daughter up with her. Wild animals can be unpredictable. The wolf pup took another step forward, water swirling around its paws, when a sharp howl cut through the forest. The pup's head whipped around, ears perked toward the sound, its mother calling. With one last look at Olivia, the pup turned and bounded back into the forest, disappearing as quickly as it had arrived. "Mom, did you see that?" Olivia exclaimed as Eleanor hurried them back toward the path. "It wasn't scared of us at all." "Which is exactly why we need to be careful," Eleanor replied, her heart still racing. "It's still a wild animal, honey." But Olivia wasn't listening. Something about the wolf pup had captured her imagination. "Do you think it lives near our cabin? Can we see it again?" "I hope not," Eleanor muttered, quickening their pace along the path. "Your father needs to know there are wolves this close to the cabin." Meanwhile, Dr. Maya Blackwood and Liam had lost track of the wolf pup when it veered off suddenly, apparently responding to the howl they'd also heard. "That's the alpha female," Maya said, checking her tracking equipment. "She's calling the pup back to the pack. This is good, the family is reuniting." Liam nodded, making notes in his field journal. "Should we follow?" Maya considered this, then shook her head. "Let's give them space for the reunion. We can check the signals later to confirm they're together. I'm more interested in why this pup was so fixated on this particular path. It wasn't moving randomly like you'd expect from a lost wolf. It was tracking something specific. Maybe it found food," Liam suggested. "Possibly," Maya agreed, though she didn't sound convinced. But its behavior was unusual, almost deliberate. They began packing up their equipment when Liam noticed something moving through the trees ahead of them. "Is that a person?" Maya looked up, squinting against the dappled sunlight. "Park ranger," she confirmed, recognizing the uniform. "That's Frank. I know him." She waved, catching the older man's attention. Frank changed direction, heading toward the researchers with a friendly smile beneath his salt and pepper mustache. "Dr. Blackwood," he greeted her. "Didn't expect to see you in this section today. Following those wolves of yours?" "Just one," she replied, explaining about the separated pup. "It reunited with its mother a few minutes ago by the sound of it." Frank nodded approvingly. "Nature taking its course. That's always good to see." He paused, seeming to remember something. "Say, you wouldn't happen to know if there are any families staying in this area, would you? Particularly with children." Maya raised an eyebrow. "There's a rental cabin about a mile east of here. I noticed it was occupied when we passed by yesterday. Why do you ask?" Frank reached into his pocket and pulled out the silver locket. "Found this in a fox den I was checking. It's got a child's photo inside. Figured someone might be missing it." Maya took the locket, examining it with interest. The silver heart lay in her palm, the broken chain coiled beside it. When she opened it, she didn't see a child's photo as Frank had assumed, but an elderly woman, Olivia's grandmother, though Maya had no way of knowing this. "Interesting," she murmured. "Could have been lost by hikers or washed downstream during the storm. Or carried by animals," Liam added. "Foxes are notorious collectors." An idea began forming in Maya's mind, a connection between the wolf pup's strange behavior and this human object found in a fox's den. "Frank, you said you found this today." "In a den not far from here," Frank nodded. "Just over by the big pine. Maybe half a mile that way," he pointed. Maya looked at Liam, excitement building. The pup was tracking something along this exact path. What if ... "You think it was following the fox that took this locket?" Liam asked, catching on quickly. "It's a hypothesis," Maya admitted. "But it would explain the pup's unusual behavior. It was hunting, but not for food." Frank looked skeptical. "You're suggesting a wolf pup was tracking a specific object? That's a stretch, Dr. Blackwood." Maya carefully handed the locket back to Frank. "Maybe, but I've documented cases of wolves becoming fixated on unusual objects before. There was a pack in Idaho that repeatedly returned to an abandoned campsite where they'd found a child's stuffed animal. They never destroyed it, just moved it around, almost like they were playing with it. Still," Frank said, pocketing the locket again, "I should try to return this to its owner. If there's a family at that cabin, I'll stop by and ask if it belongs to them." As Frank left, Maya turned to Liam, her scientific mind racing with possibilities. "Let's recalibrate our study. I want to focus on this pup for the next few days, see if it exhibits any more unusual behaviors." Back at the cabin, Eleanor was frantically explaining to Thomas, who had just returned from town, about their encounter with the wolf pup. "It was so close, Thomas. It started coming toward us through the stream." Thomas frowned, setting down the groceries he'd brought back. "Did it seem aggressive?" "No," Olivia piped up before her mother could answer. "It looked sad, like it lost something, too." Thomas and Eleanor exchanged a look over their daughter's head. "Either way," Thomas said, "we should be more careful. No more wandering in the woods without me." Eleanor nodded in agreement, but Olivia seemed disappointed. She was about to argue when a knock at the door interrupted them. Thomas opened it to find Park Ranger Frank Dawson standing on their porch, hat in hand. "Afternoon," Frank greeted them. "Sorry to bother you folks. I'm Ranger Dawson from the Pinewood Forest Service. Just wanted to check if everyone's doing all right after that storm last night." "We're fine, thank you," Thomas replied, relaxing slightly at the official presence. "Actually, we were just talking about some wildlife we encountered. My wife and daughter saw a wolf pup by the stream earlier." Frank nodded knowingly. "We've got a pack that roams this area. Usually keep their distance from humans, though." He glanced at Olivia, who was listening intently from behind her father. "Say, I found something today that might belong to someone staying up here." He reached into his pocket and pulled out the silver locket. Olivia gasped, pushing past her father. "My locket? You found it?" Frank smiled, kneeling down to her level. "This is yours?" "Where did you lose it?" "Here, by our cabin," Olivia explained, eagerly taking the locket from his outstretched hand. "During the storm. Where did you find it?" Frank exchanged a glance with the parents before answering. "Well, that's the interesting part. I found it in a fox's den about a mile from here. A fox took my locket?" Olivia's eyes widened with wonder. "How did it get all the way over there?" Frank chuckled. "Foxes love shiny things. Must have found it and decided to add it to its collection." Thomas and Eleanor thanked the ranger profusely as Olivia examined her recovered treasure. The locket was slightly scratched, and the chain was broken, but when she opened it, her grandmother's photograph was still intact inside. "I can fix that chain for you when we get home," Thomas promised his daughter, who was beaming with joy. As Frank turned to leave, he paused. "Oh, by the way, there are some wildlife researchers in the area tracking the local wolf pack. If you see them, no need to worry. Dr. Blackwood and her assistant are professionals." After the ranger left, Olivia sat on the porch steps, her precious locket clutched in her hands. She was overjoyed to have it back, but something was nagging at her young mind. A connection she couldn't quite articulate between the sad-looking wolf pup and her recovered treasure. "Mom," she said finally, looking up at Eleanor, who was sitting beside her. "Do you think the wolf was looking for my locket too?" Eleanor smiled at her daughter's imagination. "I doubt it, honey. Why would a wolf care about a locket?" "Maybe it found it first before the fox took it," Olivia suggested, her mind working through the possibilities with the child's logic. "Maybe that's why it looked so sad." Eleanor stroked her daughter's hair. "That's a nice story, but animals don't think like we do. The wolf was probably just separated from its family. Like how I was separated from Grandma's picture," Olivia said softly, opening the locket to look at the photograph inside. Unknown to the Masons, Dr. Maya Blackwood's hypothesis wasn't far from Olivia's intuitive guess. The wolf pup had indeed found the locket first, carried it through the storm, and lost it to the opportunistic fox. And now, reunited with its pack but still somehow affected by the brief connection to the human object, the young wolf would continue to exhibit behaviors that would both puzzle and amaze the researchers watching it in the days to come. As night fell over Pinewood Forest, the wolf pack settled in a sheltered clearing nearly 2 miles from the Mason's cabin. The alpha female had led them to this familiar den site, a series of shallow caves formed by ancient rock formations and twisted tree roots. The pack of 7 wolves, including the once-lost pup, huddled together for warmth and protection. But while the other wolves drifted into sleep, the young pup remained restless. Something had changed in its behavior since finding and losing the silver locket. It paced at the den entrance, occasionally glancing back toward the direction of the cabin, its sensitive nose still catching faint traces of the unfamiliar yet somehow comforting scent that had clung to the silver heart. The alpha female watched her pup with cautious eyes. She had noticed the change in her offspring, a new curiosity about human scents and territories that went beyond the pack's normal, cautious avoidance. It was concerning, potentially dangerous, but also part of the pup's individual development. The mother wolf could only watch and wait, ready to protect if necessary. At the research station a few miles away, Maya sat at her computer, analyzing the GPS data from the wolves' radio collars. The main screen displayed a map of Pinewood Forest, with colored dots representing each collared wolf. All the dots were clustered together now, except one. "The pup's on the move again," she told Liam, who was preparing their equipment for the next day's fieldwork. "It's separated from the pack." Liam looked up, surprised. "At night? That's unusual. The pack normally stays together after dark." "Exactly," Maya said, tapping at the keyboard to zoom in on the map. "And look at its trajectory." The small dot representing the wolf pup was moving in a straight line, directly toward the area where the Mason's cabin stood. "It's returning to where it was lost during the storm," Liam observed. Maya nodded slowly, her scientific mind racing with questions. "Or it's returning to where it found something significant. Remember that locket? What if the pup had some kind of attachment to it? That's anthropomorphizing," Liam cautioned, though he sounded uncertain. Wolves don't form attachments to inanimate objects the way humans do. Don't they? Maya challenged, rising from her chair. We've documented wolves repeatedly returning to sites where significant events occurred, where pack members died, where territory battles were fought, where pups were born. Memory and attachment aren't exclusively human traits. She grabbed her jacket and field bag. We need to follow it. This could be groundbreaking behavioral data. Meanwhile, at the cabin, the Mason family had settled in for the night. Thomas had managed to temporarily repair Olivia's locket chain with some fishing line, allowing her to wear it to bed. The little girl had fallen asleep clutching the silver heart, the restored connection to her grandmother bringing her profound comfort. Her parents sat by the fireplace discussing their plans for the remaining days of their vacation. "I think we should stick closer to the cabin," Eleanor said, still unsettled by the wolf encounter. "After what happened today—" Thomas nodded, stoking the fire. "I agree, though the ranger didn't seem too concerned about the wolves being dangerous." "It's not just that," Eleanor admitted. "There's something about this place. It feels like—" "Like what?" Thomas prompted, when she didn't continue. Eleanor shook her head, struggling to articulate her feelings. "Like there's something watching us. Something waiting." Outside, the wind had picked up, rustling through the pine trees and carrying with it the distant sound of a lone wolf howl, the young pup, calling out as it made its solitary journey through the darkness. In Olivia's dreams, the silver locket glowed with a soft light, and she could hear the gentle voice of her grandmother speaking to her, though the words were unclear. The dream shifted, and suddenly she was standing by the stream again, but this time she was alone. Across the water stood the wolf pup, its gray fur silvered by moonlight, its amber eyes fixed on her. In its mouth, impossibly, was another silver locket, identical to the one around Olivia's neck. The little girl awoke with a start, her hand automatically reaching for her locket. It was still there, warm against her skin. The cabin was quiet except for the occasional crackle from the dying embers in the fireplace. Through her bedroom window, Olivia could see the full moon hanging low over the forest, casting long shadows across the clearing. And there, at the edge of the trees, stood a small figure, the wolf pup, its eyes reflecting the moonlight as it watched the cabin. Olivia blinked, certain she must still be dreaming. But when she looked again, the pup was still there, sitting perfectly still, as if waiting for something. Without thinking, Olivia slipped out of bed and padded to the window. She pressed her small palm against the glass, her breath fogging the cool surface. The wolf pup tilted its head, studying her with that same curious gaze from the stream. "You came back," Olivia whispered. As if in response, the pup stood and took a few steps forward, then stopped, still watching the window. It was an invitation, or a request. Olivia glanced at her bedroom door, behind which her parents slept. She knew she shouldn't go outside, especially not at night, especially not to meet a wild animal. But something inside her, something beyond her young understanding, pulled her toward the pup. The same something that had connected them across the stream earlier that day. Quietly, she pulled on her boots and jacket over her pajamas. She took her locket off and held it tightly in her hand as she tiptoed through the cabin and carefully unlocked the front door. The night air was cool and filled with forest sounds. The rustle of leaves, the distant call of an owl, the gentle babble of the stream beyond the trees. Olivia stepped onto the porch, scanning the tree line. For a moment, she thought the wolf was gone, that she had imagined it all. Then she spotted it, now standing at the bottom of the porch steps, watching her with intelligent eyes that seemed to hold a wisdom beyond its young age. "Did you help find my locket?" Olivia asked softly, kneeling at the top of the steps to be closer to the animal's level. She held up the silver heart. "Is that why you're here?" The wolf pup took another step forward, its nose twitching as it caught the scent of the locket. The same scent it had carried through the storm, the same object it had protected and then lost. Dr. Maya Blackwood froze at the edge of the clearing, her night vision binoculars trained on the incredible scene unfolding before her. She and Liam had followed the pup's signal, expecting to observe it investigating the area where it had been separated from its pack. Instead, they found it approaching the cabin, and now, incredibly, interacting with a small child. "Liam," she whispered urgently to her assistant, who was setting up a video camera equipped for low-light recording. "Are you getting this?" "Every second," he confirmed, his voice tight with amazement. "This is unprecedented." They watched as the wolf pup cautiously climbed the first step of the porch, then the second, moving toward the kneeling child with slow, deliberate movements that showed no aggression, only curiosity. "Shouldn't we intervene?" Liam asked nervously. "What if it attacks her?" "Its body language is submissive, not threatening," Maya observed, though her heart was racing. "But stay ready. If anything changes, we'll move in." Olivia remained perfectly still as the wolf pup reached the top step. Now, just 2 feet away from her, the animal lowered its head, sniffing at the locket in her outstretched palm. Its warm breath ghosted across her small fingers, causing the little girl to giggle softly. "That tickles," she whispered. At the sound of her voice, the pup's ears perked forward. It raised its head, amber eyes meeting Olivia's blue ones. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, child and wild animal, connected by something neither scientists nor parents could fully understand. Then, with a gentleness that belied its wild nature, the wolf pup extended its nose and touched the silver locket. Olivia felt rather than heard the soft whine that vibrated through the young wolf's body, a sound of recognition, of connection. "You did know my locket," Olivia breathed, wonder filling her voice. "You found it during the storm, didn't you?" The pup sat back on its haunches, still watching her intently. Its tail swished against the wooden porch floor. Not quite a wag, but not the stiff posture of a threatened animal either. "I have it back now," Olivia continued, speaking to the wolf as if it could understand every word. "Thank you for keeping it safe." From the shadows of the forest, Maya watched in astonishment. "This is impossible," she murmured to Liam. "The pup is treating her like a pack member." "The locket," Liam whispered back, adjusting the camera to zoom in. "It's responding to the locket, the same object it was tracking earlier." Before Maya could respond, a new sound cut through the night. A deep, rumbling growl from the tree line opposite where the researchers hid. The alpha female had arrived, drawn by the absence of her pup and the scent of humans. Her powerful form emerged from the shadows, hackles raised as she spotted her offspring so close to the human child. Olivia froze, her eyes widening in fear as she saw the much larger wolf stalking toward the porch. The pup turned, sensing its mother's presence, caught between two worlds, the familiar call of its pack and the strange new connection it had formed. "Get inside," Maya called out, breaking cover as she assessed the dangerous situation unfolding. "Now!" Her sudden appearance startled both Olivia and the wolves. The alpha female snarled, taking a defensive stance between Maya and her pup. The young wolf darted down the steps, torn between retreat and its fascination with the locket. The cabin door burst open as Thomas and Eleanor, awakened by the commotion, rushed outside. Thomas scooped Olivia into his arms in one swift movement, backing toward the safety of the doorway. "What were you thinking?" he demanded, his voice tight with fear and anger. "Olivia, you could have been— The wolf wasn't hurting me, Daddy," Olivia protested, still clutching her locket. "It was just looking at Grandma's picture." Eleanor pulled them both inside, as Maya cautiously moved to put herself between the wolves and the cabin. The alpha female continued to growl, but made no move to attack, focusing instead on reclaiming her pup. "I'm Doctor Maya Blackwood," Maya called to the family now huddled in the doorway. "Wildlife researcher, please stay inside. They won't attack unless they feel threatened." Thomas nodded curtly, closing the door but watching through the window as Maya slowly backed away, giving the wolves space to retreat. The alpha nudged her pup firmly, encouraging it back toward the forest. The young wolf hesitated, looking back toward the cabin one last time before finally following its mother into the shadows. Once the wolves had disappeared, Maya approached the cabin. Liam emerged from his hiding spot, still clutching the camera. "Did you get all that?" Maya asked him, her voice shaking slightly with adrenaline. "Every second," he confirmed. "It's going to revolutionize how we understand wolf behavior." That pup formed a connection with an inanimate object and traced it back to its owner. "Not just any object," Maya noted. "One with human scent and significance. We need to talk to that family." Inside the cabin, Thomas was scolding Olivia, his fear manifesting as anger. "You know better than to go outside alone at night and to approach a wild animal? Olivia, you could have been killed." Tears welled in the little girl's eyes. "But the wolf was my friend. It helped find my locket." "Wolves are not friends," Thomas said firmly. "They're wild animals, dangerous predators." A knock at the door interrupted his lecture. Eleanor opened it cautiously to find Maya and Liam standing on the porch. "I'm sorry to disturb you," Maya said, showing her research credentials. "But I need to talk to you about what just happened. It's important for our research." Thomas was reluctant, still shaken by finding his daughter so close to the wolves, but Eleanor invited the researchers in. As they settled in the living room, Olivia sat quietly in a corner armchair, still holding her precious locket. "What your daughter experienced tonight was extraordinary," Maya began, setting her field notebook on the coffee table. "In 20 years of studying wolf behavior, I've never documented anything like it." "She shouldn't have been outside," Thomas interjected. "It was dangerous and foolish." "Yes," Maya agreed calmly. "From a safety perspective, you're absolutely right. But from a scientific standpoint, what we witnessed may be unprecedented. That wolf pup formed a connection with your daughter's locket, an object it encountered during the storm when it was separated from its pack." Eleanor leaned forward, interested despite her lingering fear. "How do you know that?" Maya explained their tracking of the pup, its unusual fixation on the path that led to the fox's den, and their hypothesis about its attachment to the locket. Liam set up his laptop, showing them the footage they'd captured of the pup's deliberate journey back to the cabin. "It's as if it wanted to check that the locket had been returned to its proper owner," Maya concluded. "That level of object permanence and connection is, well, it challenges our understanding of wolf cognition." Throughout the explanation, Olivia had been listening intently. Now she spoke up, her voice small but confident. "I told you it was looking for my locket. The wolf knew it was special." Maya turned to the little girl with genuine interest. "Can you tell me about your locket, Olivia? Why is it so important to you?" "My grandma gave it to me before she died," Olivia explained, opening the silver heart to show the photograph. "It's the only picture I have of her now. She said, as long as I have the locket, she's always with me." A thoughtful expression crossed Maya's face. Objects imbued with emotional significance. I wonder if the wolf somehow sensed that importance. Animals are more perceptive than we often give them credit for. Thomas remained skeptical, but Eleanor was beginning to see the situation in a different light. "So, what happens now?" she asked. "With your permission," Maya said, "we'd like to continue our observation of this wolf pack, particularly the pup. Its behavior is unique and could contribute significantly to our understanding of wolf psychology." "And Olivia?" Eleanor pressed. "What about her safety?" "Under no circumstances should she approach the wolves again," Maya said firmly, looking directly at the little girl. "What happened tonight was special, but also dangerous. Wild animals are unpredictable, and the mother wolf was clearly protective." Olivia nodded solemnly, though her eyes still shone with excitement at her extraordinary encounter. As the discussion continued into the night, none of them could have anticipated how the connections formed that evening between child and wolf, between science and wonder, would deepen in the days to come, nor how those connections would ultimately lead to tears in the eyes of hardened researchers and change forever the relationship between the inhabitants of Pinewood Forest, both human and wild. Dawn broke over the forest with golden light filtering through morning mist. The Mason family had finally returned to sleep in the early hours, with Olivia extracting a promise from her parents to let Dr. Blackwood visit again to share her findings. The researchers had retreated to their field station, eager to analyze their footage and prepare for another day of observation. In the wolf den, the pack stirred as sunlight reached their sleeping forms. The alpha female rose first, stretching her powerful limbs before checking on each member of her family. When she came to her wayward pup, she found it sleeping fitfully, paws twitching as if in pursuit of something even in its dreams. The mother wolf sensed the change in her offspring. A new scent clung to its fur, a human child's scent mixed with something metallic and unfamiliar. The alpha knew humans meant danger, that their territories were to be avoided. Yet this pup, barely 4 months old, had already broken that cardinal rule twice. Something would have to be done. At the research station, Maya sat surrounded by printouts of data and video stills from the previous night. Dark circles under her eyes betrayed her lack of sleep, but the excitement of discovery kept her focused. Liam entered with 2 steaming mugs of coffee, setting one beside his mentor. "I've been thinking," he said, taking a seat across from her. "What if this isn't just about the locket as an object? What if it's about what the locket represents?" Maya looked up, intrigued. "Go on." "The girl said it contains a picture of her deceased grandmother. It's a connection to someone lost." Liam paused, organizing his thoughts. The pup was separated from its pack during the storm, lost, afraid. It found this object that to the little girl represents a connection to someone she's lost. "A parallel experience," Maya murmured, turning the idea over in her mind. "But that would suggest a level of emotional intelligence we've never documented in wolves before." "Exactly," Liam said, his voice rising with excitement. "What if wolves are capable of forming attachments not just to living beings, but to symbols? What if that pup understood, on some level, that the locket was a connection to something lost, just as it was lost?" Maya shook her head, scientific skepticism warring with the evidence of her own observations. "That's a massive leap, Liam. We need more data." "Then, let's get it," he replied, already reaching for his field gear. "The pack is on the move again. I checked the GPS signals this morning." Maya studied the map he pulled up on his tablet. The wolves had moved further from the cabin overnight, deeper into the forest where they typically hunted, all except one dot. The pup's signal showed it had separated from the pack again. "This is getting interesting," Maya said, quickly pulling on her jacket. "The alpha female clearly tried to draw it away from the cabin last night, but it's breaking away again." As they prepared to head out, Maya's satellite phone rang. A call from her research director at the university. "Dr. Blackwood," she answered, wedging the phone between ear and shoulder as she laced up her boots. "Maya, it's Gerald. Just checking in on your progress. The department committee meets next week to review funding allocations for next quarter." Maya winced. The timing couldn't be worse. Her grant funding depended on producing tangible research results, but her current observations were still too preliminary, too unbelievable, really, to include in a formal report. "We're making good progress," she said carefully. "In fact, we've observed some unusual behavior patterns that could be significant." "Unusual how?" Gerald pressed, his tone suggesting he needed something concrete to take to the committee. Maya hesitated. Describing a wolf pup's apparent attachment to a child's locket would sound absurd without proper documentation and peer review. She'd be risking her professional reputation. "We're tracking a young wolf that appears to be developing independent behavior patterns distinct from its pack," she said instead. "I need more time to document the full scope of these behaviors before drawing conclusions." Gerald's sigh was audible through the phone. "Maya, you know I support your work. But the committee needs results, not possibilities. Without something substantial, I can't guarantee your funding will continue." After promising to send preliminary findings within the week, Maya ended the call, her enthusiasm dampened by the reality of academic politics. "Problem?" Liam asked, recognizing the concern on her face. "Just the usual," she replied with forced lightness. "Produce extraordinary research, but make sure it fits neatly into existing paradigms." They set out toward the wolf pup's last known location, both lost in thought about the implications of their observations. If they could prove that wolves were capable of forming symbolic attachments, it would be groundbreaking. If they were wrong, they'd be laughingstocks in the scientific community. Meanwhile, back at the cabin, Olivia was sitting on the porch steps, drawing in a sketchbook her mother had given her to keep her occupied, and, more importantly, in sight. Her night adventure had earned her strict supervision, but she didn't mind. She was busy creating page after page of drawings, featuring a small gray wolf carrying a silver heart in its mouth. Eleanor watched her daughter from the kitchen window, still processing the events of the previous night and the researchers' extraordinary claims. Thomas had gone fishing at the stream, partly to catch their lunch and partly to check the surrounding area for any signs of the wolves. "Mom!" Olivia's excited call drew Eleanor to the door. "Look what I found." Eleanor stepped onto the porch to see her daughter pointing at something in the dirt near the bottom step. Kneeling down, she realized it was a paw print, larger than the pup's would be. "The mother wolf was here again," Olivia said, carefully placing her hand next to the print to show the size difference. "She came back after we were asleep." Eleanor felt a chill run down her spine. "Let's go inside, honey. I think that's enough outdoor time for now." "But Mom, she didn't do anything bad," Olivia protested. "She was just checking on us, like you check on me when I'm sleeping." The comparison, innocent as it was, disturbed Eleanor more than she wanted to admit. The idea of a wild predator checking on her family during the night was far from comforting. Yet Dr. Blackwood's words kept coming back to her, that these animals might be capable of more complex understanding than humans had given them credit for. As they went inside, neither noticed the small gray form watching from the undergrowth at the forest's edge. The wolf pup had returned, drawn by some inexplicable connection to the cabin and its inhabitants. It sat perfectly still, its intelligent eyes tracking Olivia's movements through the windows. its sensitive nose catching the now familiar scent of the silver locket that had briefly been in its possession. Deep in the forest, the alpha female realized her pup was missing again. With a low growl of frustration, she signaled to the rest of the pack to continue their hunt while she backtracked to find her wayward offspring. This behavior couldn't continue. The pull toward the human dwelling was putting the pup, and potentially the entire pack, at risk. As she loped through the familiar territory, the alpha female's keen senses detected another presence in the forest. Not human, but not wolf either. Something was stalking her pup, following its trail toward the cabin. Something dangerous. At the stream, Thomas Mason was just packing up his modest catch of 3 trout when a movement across the water caught his eye. He froze, fishing rod still in hand, as a large mountain lion emerged from the trees. The predator paused, lapping water from the stream, apparently unaware of the human presence downwind. Thomas remained motionless, knowing that running could trigger the big cat's chase instinct. Mountain lions rarely attacked humans, but they were territorial and unpredictable. This one was unusually large, its tawny coat gleaming in the dappled sunlight. After what seemed like an eternity, the mountain lion finished drinking and continued on its path, disappearing into the forest in the direction of the cabin. Thomas waited until he was certain it was gone before quickly gathering his things and hurrying back, heart pounding with the need to warn his family about this new potential danger. He was so focused on the threat of the mountain lion that he didn't notice the wolf tracks crossing his path. The alpha female, running to intercept both her pup and the larger predator that threatened it. At the field station's communications center, a Forest Service ranger was delivering unexpected news to Dr. Blackwood and her team. "We've had 3 confirmed mountain lion sightings in the past week," the ranger explained, pointing to locations on the map spread across the table. "That's unusual for this time of year. They typically stay at higher elevations until the first snow." Maya frowned, considering the implications. Food shortage in the mountains? Possibly, the ranger agreed, or territorial dispute. Either way, we've got at least one large male moving through areas he normally wouldn't. Including, he added, circling an area on the map, the vicinity of that rental cabin where you met the family last night. Maya and Liam exchanged concerned glances. The presence of a mountain lion complicated their research and potentially endangered both the wolf pack and the Mason family. "We need to warn them," Maya said, already reaching for her satellite phone. "And we need to locate that wolf pup. If it's separated from its pack near the cabin, it would be easy prey for a mountain lion," Liam finished grimly. The ranger nodded. "I'll alert Frank. He should be on patrol in that sector today." As they mobilized to respond to this new threat, none of them realized how this development would further entwine the fates of Olivia, the wolf pup, and the silver locket that had brought them together. The mountain lion's presence would be the catalyst for events that would leave even the most skeptical observers questioning the boundaries between human emotion and animal understanding.